So we have a bit of an update here to a story that I talked about earlier today in Newswave. Check that out if you have not yet. But it had to do with Take-Two and sort of their view on backwards compatibility as it being a benefit but not a must-have. However, GamesIndustry.biz did have a follow-up question really discussing the negative impacts that backwards compatibility could have, say, on software sales for newer systems. Of course, this on the heels of a report from VGC that some publishers were kind of leaning on Nintendo to not have backwards compatibility because of that fact. Well, the response from Strauss-Zelnick is kind of interesting here from their viewpoint, and I wanted to go over that here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new here to the SpawnWave Plus channel. Let's head over here. This is posted up on GamesIndustry.biz when questioned, again, by Games Industry around the negative impact a feature like backwards compatibility could have on new software sales for the next system. It says, I'm not sure. You need to give consumers what they want and optimize their experience, and you can't not deliver a feature you're able to deliver so as to maximize sales. That isn't fulfilling your contract with consumers. You have to do the very best you can for them. I suppose it's possible the lack of backwards compatibility could enhance your revenue for a period of time, but at what cost? We're not a hardware manufacturer, so we don't get to make those decisions, but I think if you can be compatible technically, then you want to be. However, in certain instances, if the leap forward is great enough, that's not a possibility. So the idea of the leap forward being great enough and it not being possible can be taken in two different ways. For example, going from the PlayStation 3, which was the cell processor, custom setup, architecture, all of that, to the PS4 that was just embracing x86, yeah, you weren't really going to see backwards compatibility in that instance unless Sony did some massive R&D and work apparently per game, like kind of what we saw with The Last of Us where that got moved up as a remaster. Maybe not necessarily that entire level, but close to it. So each game would have to have sort of its own focus to move it to x86, or they would have to spend probably years and years and years developing a decent emulator. Probably not even one that's very good, to be honest. But in this case, you could also take it as a leap forward for mechanics or the concept, like what we saw with the Wii U to the Switch. The Switch, it is more capable, obviously, than the Wii U, but it's not like a massive, huge jump that is an obvious shift of you could go from the PS1 to the PS2 or something like that, right? It's not that kind of a jump, but it is that kind of a jump with the mechanics and the concept, whereas you are tethered to your TV and your system with the Wii U gamepad, only be able to go, 10 feet maybe or something from it before it stopped working. In this case, the Switch, I would say, really completed the vision of being able to have your system a console, right, on the TV, or be able to take it as a handheld wherever you want. That's clearly what they were building up to with the Wii U and couldn't quite get there, but then they were able to do so with the Switch as technology had advanced far enough to make sense at the price point that they released the system at $300 when it came out in 2017. So in that case, yeah, they weren't going to have a full disc go into the system. It just wasn't feasible. Going from disc-based to cartridge-based means that you weren't going to have backwards compatibility. Now they have their account system, and we all assume that there will be backwards compatibility because of that, and because we don't expect a radical shift when it comes to like the storage medium. We assume it's going to be a hybrid model, so it will still use cartridges, or it'll still tap into purchases you have made. So to me, Nintendo should be able to deliver backwards compatibility. That I don't even think that should be a huge question. Sure, there's going to take some effort to do it. Modern Vintage Gamer has pointed this out, that it's not like this free and easy thing of, okay, yeah, everything's just backwards compatible, no problem. There will have to be a lot of stuff done software related to get it there. But I think it's worth doing because, as being pointed out here by Strauss-Zelnick, there is a cost if you don't have backwards compatibility. In the short term, yeah, you should make more revenue on the console launch, and you can technically re-release games again, and because lineups for games, for launches anyway, aren't necessarily massive. I mean, when the Switch came out, the reason 1-2 Switch sold so well, let's face it, is because there wasn't too much else around it to buy, especially things that would show off things like HD Rumble and all this. I understand Breath of the Wild was there. Awesome game. Definitely was the big driving force behind the Switch's release. But people would look around and say, well, I guess it's either 1-2 Switch or Bomberman. So 1-2 Switch sold pretty well because of that. But if it's not backwards compatible, I mean, you're going to put a lot of your customer base off. I do believe that if Nintendo shows up and is like, hey, it's not backwards compatible, you got to buy these games again, people will still buy the system, sure, but there are probably going to be many people in the mainstream who are like, well, I'm getting what I want out of the Switch now, and I don't really feel like breaking away from my current library of games to rebuild them over here. I'll just stick with the current system until maybe a couple years from now, the library's built up to a good point. And hey, maybe games are just on sale at that point, third party related, even first party. And maybe I'll be able to get the system used that's cheaper. Basically, there won't be as big of a jump to the next system with convenience. It could be a drop-in system where you replace your current Switch, you log in with your Nintendo account, and all your purchases are there, probably minus a few. I mean, like, Labo is most likely not going to be compatible with the next system because that relied on things like screen size and Joy-Cons and all of that. But I would say 98% of games I would expect to be backwards compatible unless Nintendo really wanted to test, I mean, I would say the allegiance of some hardcore Nintendo fans and see if they can just tell them, yeah, buy it again. And what's interesting is if you look at it from Take-Two's perspective, they've been supporting older systems for a while. Even Red Dead Redemption is going to the PS4, not the PS5, the PS4, and they're going to use backwards compatibility to get it onto the PlayStation 5. So they might still be on board with moving games to the Switch now and just have it work on the next system through backwards compatibility. And in their mind, hey, if we can do that, capitalize on what's looking like it might pass the PS2 at 155 million users here. And then, I mean, after their first year, maybe 20 or 30 million people here. In their mind, yeah, make it backwards compatible. We want to take advantage of what could be 180 million users. Also, we're still seeing many companies still kind of holding on to that last generation console with the PS4 and the Xbox One. I mean, it's going to get Jedi Survivor. Like, EA's working backwards right now. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of these big publishers absolutely jump ship completely to the next system exclusively. I think there are many that would still like to put games out on the Switch if they can get it done. So it being backwards compatible, I still think would be great for everyone involved, even though apparently there are some publishers in the background saying that it's not a great idea and they shouldn't have backwards compatibility so they can do definitive editions for their systems. I think that is a very short-sighted outlook and really something that would probably hurt Nintendo, I think, in the long run, especially with customers and kind of what they've built with the Switch. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Some may be surprised that it's Strauss Zelnick who's kind of taking the side of the consumer on this one and that there should be backwards compatibility. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.